So today I just want to talk about stories and the value of stories, more specifically about the idea that stories are foundational in our ability to discover and build the imagined world. Stories are basically a portal that helps us traverse the world beyond of what we already know and perhaps into those that we would like to. Especially stories like Doctor Strange, Harry Potter, Hercules, Lion King, The Hunger Games, Buddha's Tale, and even the Bible. Especially because these stories help us assume the mantle of a very important figure, the hero and the heroine. In Joseph Campbell's incredibly seminal work, The Hero of a Thousand Faces, we see him explore legends and myths from across time and region to identify and reveal similar beats and significances that bind them in a cultural weave, almost as if across the world we have a very similar thought process of what the hero is, even if he or she does not look the way others or we look like. As such, it's a very critical text in being able to build story narratives for movies, video games, literature, and it's influenced a lot of creatives like Stanley Kubrick, Lucas George, Neil Gaiman, and Christopher Vogler. And we'll be focusing today on Christopher Vogler's adaptation of what Joseph Campbell's core teaching is in the book, and that's called The Hero's Journey, or also known as monomyth, or the idea that everything is formed within one myth. This entire setup of the hero's journey is essentially a storytelling framework that helps lay bare the story and how we follow the protagonist, usually in adventures, but also in other genres across literature and storytelling. In terms of the way the structure is set up, it's got, this version specifically has 3 acts, and each act is further divided into 12 sort of almost scenes that make up the entire, each of the acts. And the 3 acts are departure, initiation, and return. So I'll take you through each of them, each act and each scene which is within it. And I'll also try to show you some references that will illustrate the point of this entire hero's journey. I've tried to use references which are from 2016 and before. So hopefully you've seen a lot of the references that I'll be making, and then not a lot of things will be spoilers for you. So let's jump into it. Act 1, departure. The first part, the ordinary world. Everything is as it seems. This is the everyday life of the protagonist or the hero. In this, an example is Dorothy, who's just at her farm in Kansas. Nothing is unusual in her life. Aladdin is just a common thief in the streets of Agrabah, and Dr. Strange, or Stephen Strange, is a renowned neurosurgeon in New York. Everything in this first step is very routine for our hero. The next part is the call to action. There's a disruption in the hero's world. It changes the status quo, and an adventure calls. For Siddhartha Gautama, who becomes sort of Buddha, it is for him the observance of sort of suffering, which is his call to action, before which he's living a very, very sheltered and a very life filled with lots of delights. For Lion King, it's Scar killing Mufasa. For Harry, it's him finding out that he is indeed a wizard. And for Doctor Strange, it's the almost fatal accident that changes his life almost irreversibly from a scientific point of view. The call to adventure almost creates an opening for things to happen for the hero in the story. The next part is the refusal to the call. Hesitation grips the hero from going or believing. In the Bible, Moses initially refuses the call of God to go back to the Pharaoh and sort of demand the freedom of the Israelites, saying that he stutters and he's not very eloquent. And that's his reason for not initially accepting the call. Frodo, it's the idea that he's uneasy about leaving his quiet life in the Shire. And initially, Rocky says that he does not want to fight Apollo, and that is his initial refusal of the call. In totality, the refusal of the call is almost like it highlights the mortality of humans, and it also shows us the fear of the unknown that usually grips the hero before they leave for the adventure. After which they meet the mentor. The hero meets a guide, a mentor who provides supplies, knowledge, and aid. Usually this aid is supernatural, and the person who's the mentor is very unlike them. So for the Karate Kid, it's Mr. Miyagi. For Aladdin, it's Genie. And for Doctor Strange, it's the Ancient One. In totality, the mentor figure helps the hero gain confidence as well as show them a direction of where to go now. Act 2, initiation. In this first part of the initiation is crossing the threshold. The hero commits wholeheartedly into this new world. The threshold can be physical or a metaphysical point. It is usually beyond this that everything will change and nothing will be the same as how the hero has previously lived. For Frodo, and it's when Frodo and Sam leave the Shire. For Doctor Strange, it's when he asks the Ancient One to accept him and start training him. And for Simba, it's sort of the acceptance of this Hakuna Matata life away from his real core to reason, which is to be the king of Pride Rock. All in all, the threshold is an indication that there is going to be a relinquishing of the hero in some way of their previous life that they've already had. The next is tests, allies, and enemies. Trials are met, so are enemies, and so are friends. The hero explores this world. And they usually delve deeper into its offerings. For Doctor Strange, it's sort of learning how to become the master of these mystic arts. He meets a lot of other people. He has a lot of trials. He also meets the villains of the story. For Katniss Everdeen, when she's in the capital, she realizes that she needs to assess her competition and create a skill that is bespokely hers, and that will help her within the Hunger Games. And for the Alchemist, for Santiago, once he loses all of his money, he starts to work for the Crystal Merchant and therefore starts manifesting what his true life intends to be. All of these are references which show to us the forces that govern the hero's world. The next is approaching the innermost cave. Here, the hero nears the center of the story. Fears and revelations feature. And these are usually the most darkest parts of their story yet. For Neo, it's when the Oracle tells him that it's either him or Morpheus who will survive, and that it will be Neo who will choose that. For Simba, it's when Nala tells him that you need to relinquish your Hakuna Matata life and come back to help us and save us from Scar's tyranny. And for Doctor Strange, it's finding out that the Ancient One also draws power from the dark dimension, therefore eroding his trust in her. In the innermost cave, it's a very, very dark pathway, and the hero is often moving towards being lost, and usually dangers lurk ahead. 8, the ordeal. The hero must face their greatest challenge yet. They are at their lowest, the hero is lost. And often the hero also loses others. For Simba, he sort of strays away from Timon and Pumbaa, and he starts going into this endless night with a lot of questions and confusion and a lot of fear as well. In Star Wars, the 4th episode, it's when Darth Vader kills Obi-Wan, and in Doctor Strange, it's when Ancient One dies, despite Stephen Strange's medical and mystical knowledge. So this is kind of the darkest hour for the hero yet. Whatever has supported them thus far starts to crumble, and they find themselves at the center of their perils. But there is, once they overcome that, they get the reward. It's essentially the hero survives, overcoming the ordeal. In exchange, they are stronger and ready to face the final confrontation. Um, for the Buddha, it's after a lot of toil and temptations and travel, he finally reaches sort of enlightenment. For the narrator in Fight Club, it's finding out that he actually is Tyler Durden, and everything that's been happening to him is kind of a creation within his own psyche. And for Doctor Strange, it's when the Ancient One tells him on her dying sort of dying moments that he indeed is chosen one, that and one is never ready, but he actually is ready to take up the mantle. And in a way, the reward is a very foundational shift for the character, or it's a really big reinforcement on their fears that they have been sort of dealing with in the ordeal. Act 3, the return. The road back. The heroes on their way back to their original quest. They must defeat whatever is in their way. Often this means storming the castle and going directly for their main goal. For Simba, it's returning back to Pride Rock. For Kevin in Home Alone, it's when he realizes that this is my house and that I need to defend it, and starts planning against the bandits. And for Doctor Strange, is when he returns back to Hong Kong and turns back time and then starts to enter Dormammu's dark dimension. In totality, the road back is a display of a very strong will of the character and often their clearest intentions. Next comes the resurrection. It's almost like the denouement of this story. This is the moment where the hero will prove the power of their renewed resolve. This is the climactic confrontation. Their fears must die, their truths must live. For the narrator in Fight Club, it's sort of taking his own life because that's the only way to defeat Tyler in his own mind. In Star Wars, it's defeating or destroying the Death Star. And in Doctor Strange, it's sort of when he fights Dormammu and sort of traps him in this endless loop, telling him that once he will only sort of release him from the loop once he leaves Earth. And in this sort of a setup, the hero's problems die with the obstacle, and they are reborn as the master of two worlds, one of their old self and of this new world that they're hoping to create with this action that they've just committed. And this is the final step of this 12-part sort of journey, which is return with the elixir, which is the hero returns with something to make the world better. In Lion King, it's Simba becoming the ruler of Pride Rock. For Doctor Strange, it's becoming the Sorcerer Supreme. And in the cult classic Sholay, it's when Viru decides to leave Ramgarh and he boards the train to find that Basanti is leaving with him on his new and next adventure. In the end, the elixir just brings a resemblance of peace and resolution, and often it leaves the world either with a hero, a new hero often, even if this is the last sort of feat of heroism that they will commit. If this story, which we've just heard, is the last piece of heroism that they have committed, it still creates a story for us to talk and think about. The hero's journey, though divided into these 12 parts and 3 acts, is far more than this. There is a lot of victories and defeats that can't simply be put into blacks and whites. And there is a lot of gray that can be applied to this framework. But what Campbell's framework helps us understand is that there is a greater detail that we can go into with the ubiquitous nature of human endeavor, what we are seeking, whom we find, who are allies, what are the obstacles we face, and where we are right now and where we will be in our future if we take the steps that we do, and what are our deepest, darkest fears, and if we overcome them, how will we look? The structure is fairly flexible. It could be expanded, as you can see on the left side, into its original form, which is the 16 to 17 structure part, or it could be reduced to the sort of 8 structure, depending on the author's need for it. So it allows us to sort of break and reconfigure parts of this. The structures also can be used beyond its original intentions. So you can see that here it's being used to sort of map a patient's journey who's taking cancer treatment. And on the other side, it sort of maps the beats of an advert, the Apple advert. And this just helps us know that this structure is really malleable depending purely on our imagination, and just like the hero is. And so, yeah, that is what the hero's journey is encapsulated into. And this is the end.